Good morning and welcome to the Sunday Coffee Edition. Joining as my co-host, the future governor of Virginia, TK Eppley, a special guest in Ash Shukla, who is an author, an entrepreneur, a speaker. He's got a new book coming out called Financial Chakras that should be available within the next 3 to 4 months. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Ford, and this is EchelonOrchid.
Guess who's back?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, gentlemen.
Yeah. So, Ash, I have this, this joke that I keep putting out there. The hashtag is now for TK that he's going to be the future governor of Virginia. Whether he's running or not, my goal is to try to get him written in.
It's Dan's twisted little dream for me.
Well, it's okay.
I try.
Yeah.
So, Ash, thank you so much this morning. It's a good little twist and for people to hear what TK and I tend to blab on about, which has been everything from the Constitution to politics to leadership. We even we've talked about just about everything that tends to not allow me to promote any of my show because YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, if you mention anything really about the election or politics, they don't let you promote it. They're like, no, sorry,
you won't be able to promote this one. You won't be able to promote this one because you introduced me as the next. Right.
Probably not. I probably won't. They do those kind of things all the time. Funny enough that Facebook is a little bit more lenient than Google and Twitter. I would have thought at this point in time that they wouldn't be, but they're not the strictest.
Really? So they won't let you stream like that's anything that's political, huh?
They'll let you stream a lot of it. What they won't do is
I can't promote it.
Right. They won't allow it as promoted content.
Wow. Talk about control.
Yeah, and I'm going,
but I'll leave it
right,
at that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. But enough about that. Ash, thank you again so much for joining. You've got a really interesting story. I've never had to live in another country, nor have I had to really go to a country where I was going there, people didn't really speak English. You came here a long time ago with $20 in your pocket. How nervous, how scared were you to come to a country like the United States, not knowing the language, not knowing what's going to happen? How did you feel about that?
So nervousness wise, like I'll give you, can I give you a synopsis or a story on that behind that? That would help you?
Absolutely.
Okay. So it was September 4th, 1989. We were going to leave India because my aunt had applied for us in 1981. And finally we had received our visa in 1989. So my dad he was a government worker, and we used to live in government quarters, right? Like government condos, if you will. And so my dad had, for the first time, government offered him to, what do you call this? Either buy, get a home from them, right? So they were going to get a land and get a home for us for like 80,000 rupees. And it's not a lot of money in dollars, but for us, it was everything because that's all my dad had. Now, at the same time, he had to choose to get that or buy the tickets to go to United States. So, so my dad, like we purchased a ticket and he literally emptied out his bank account. Then we get to the airport in 1989. And we are saying goodbye to our family. Of course, back in the day, nobody had gotten onto an airplane before. So my entire family was there. My mom, my dad, my aunts and uncles and everybody. So and my grandfather was there. As we said bye to them, we got onto the plane. We were like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. And what transpire, like, of course we have hopes and dreams, right? All of us are hopeful. So we get on a plane, and what happens then is that we get on this plane, and me and my brother, like, we are smelling the nice aroma, that inside of the plane, it was luxurious, it was amazing. And we got on the run. We were sitting on the runway, and the plane just sat there for like 4.5 hours, and it was delayed because of technical difficulties. And then we go to the London Heathrow Airport. When we got there, the plane got delayed. Obviously, because plane was delayed, we got there, and my dad is trying to communicate with a lady across the ticket counter. He's saying something, she's not getting it. She's saying something, he's not getting it. In the meantime, I had to go to the bathroom or restroom. And I'm looking for the, bathroom, because that's what we called it, right? So I'm looking for the bathroom, and I'm passing by this door, and it's so beautiful because everybody coming out of there was so relaxed. I'm like, oh my God, like, must be a nice, it has the sign called restroom, and I didn't know restroom is the bathroom, right? So finally somebody helps me out, and I go to the ticket counter, and there was an Indian lady finally walks up to us and helps us out. And she tells us that we have missed our connecting flight. Now, like, first time sitting on trying to get on a plane, trying to make it to your destination, we are stuck halfway around the world. You can only imagine what happens. And then we go downstairs to, we got the vouchers for the hotel and stuff like that. And we had never been in a hotel. And we get to the hotel, and we are now we have to eat. So we go downstairs to eat. And of course, we are vegetarian in London Heathrow Airport in 1989. I mean, there's only 2 words for that, right? Good luck. So we go downstairs to eat. And then, we see we didn't know what to order. So the lady, luckily, walks up again, this Indian lady, and she helps us out, get a spaghetti, a salad, and a bread roll. So I said, you know what, I'm hungry, so I got to eat something. So I started to eating salad, and it was horrible. Then I go for the spaghetti, and that was a plain noodles. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe people eat this stuff. And then I went for the bread roll. I said, bread has to be good. So I bite the bread roll. I couldn't bite it because it was soup roll. I didn't know, of course, at the time, but I found out later it was a soup roll. And then next morning, we made sure that we took our flight. we got to the airport early, and way earlier than we should, and we made sure we took the flight, to the United States. So, like, when somebody comes here, it's a nerve-wracking experience, to say the least.
Ash, I don't think in the 2 years since you've been to the country that the London Heathrow Airport's gotten any better.
They are that progressive, huh?
Yeah, I don't have as many issues with that airport as I do the Charles de Gaulle Airport. Whenever I had to fly through Charles de Gaulle, I was always delayed, and it seems like people are either always delayed in Heathrow or always delayed in Charles de Gaulle. I never had a problem going through Heathrow. I just always never enjoyed the experience of being at Heathrow.
Wow. It's just weird because, like, it's been it was such a horrendous experience for us, back then, especially because because speaking the language, you don't know what you're talking about. Nobody really understands you, except luckily this lady who understood us, and she helped us out.
Absolutely. So now you're in the United States in 1989. And did you go to university here in the United States?
Yeah, so I actually came here, and I was studying computer science, and then I ran into financial services, and I just stayed with financial services since then.
Got it. Now, what I found very interesting is, your financial services experience. Like, so you got in there, you start taking your tests, studying for these different certifications. Didn't go too well at first.
No, it was it was very interesting, to say the least, right? I think what helped me through was my tenacity, but all my exams, my life insurance, I had to take it like 8 times. 6 and 63, I had to take it like 5 times. 65, Series 65. I had to take it like 3 times. But like English was a barrier in that. Just a little bit. Because they ask you questions and they're very complicated to begin with. And then they make it more complicated by having this attorneys draft the questions. So that made it very difficult for me.
I can imagine, but I think it shows, and TK and I talk about this quite a bit, it's only failure when you choose to give up. That perseverance, that grit, you said, this is what I'm going to do, and nothing was stopping you from getting to that point.
No. So you have to have that, otherwise you will not make it.
Well, I absolutely agree. So as you're going through this journey, you're in the financial services business. Things are going well.
Yeah, actually, really well. I was managing over $300 million in the as an advisor, and then through the banking sectors, and then I started my own company. That went pretty well. Like first year in 04 is when I started my company. April 04 is when I bought the house, and April 24th, I left the job and I started my own company. And April to August, I did my research, and August through December, I did 800,000 first year. Second year was like 1.7 million. Third year was over almost 4. Fourth year, almost 5, and then fifth year onwards, it was rocking, like really, really nice. It was like dream come true, right? Everything we had dreamed about, because after coming here, even within first year, we bought a house, after being here, even though we didn't speak English, but we still bought a house.
Well, hey, the money is green. That's all they care about.
That's right. Yeah, I guess by then we knew a little bit, right? So
sure. Mm-hmm. So not too long after you started your business, when you had a little bit of a tragedy came up.
Yeah. So things are going really well, and sometimes you get into the zone of right, and then you get confident. So somebody, and I have been a very trustworthy guy since I was a child, and gullible to a degree, and so I was trustworthy to somebody, and then somebody scammed me, really badly, and that hurt me. Lost a lot of money. Wasn't exactly what I planned, but it is what it is.
Yeah, but it kind of, you still didn't give up.
No. So like after that, actually, I came out further and faster, honestly. Like, so I'm a very introvert person. So I went to my grandfather. I like to go within when things happen. So I did. And once I went within, I was able to really, figure out what the issues were. And I was able to fix up the situation in a way that it was just better. I came out much faster. I understood my energies and all that stuff my grandfather had taught, and once we aligned that, my business did 10 million that year, so I doubled it.
That's great. And I guess that event is kind of what led you to some original research.
Yeah.
Go ahead. That research happened to be with all the things that your grandfather was teaching you. Of course, I found out about these kind of things in terms of chakras through yoga. TK was there when yoga was being created back in India. So how did that realization come about to where you're like, okay, I think this can be applied to finance?
Yeah. So basically, so what happened was, when I was down, and I was really down, and I was actually not mad but pissed off, because I am either really happy or I'm pissed off, and I was pissed off. Like I was like beyond pissed off, and at the same time sad that I let somebody take advantage of me like that. Being a financial guy, like how dare he, right? Like how dare this could happen? And I had missed a small detail, and that's what that's what really got me. So then when I went to my grandfather, we had always talked. My grandfather has always been my confidant, right? So like since I was born, my mom had a postpartum depression, and when she had, because of that, like I was the first grandchild in the house, so they put me with my grandparents basically. And when that happened, when they I grew up with my grandparents, essentially. And eventually what transpired is we always talked about everything, like yoga, meditation, religion, philosophy, friendship, financial, you name it, like we talked about it pretty much. And our topics, two favorite topics for philosophy, and Hinduism, right? And of course of any religion for that matter, but Hinduism typically was a topic. So this particular day I was sitting around with him, and I was down, and I started crying when I was with him. And so he asked me what's wrong, and I told him what the situation was. So he helped me with understanding what chakras were, and helped me understand energies, and helped me understand that how we are really energetic beings. So once he helped me understood that, then he started working on me with different techniques, with Reiki and a couple other techniques that he started working on. He helped me with pranayama, breathing techniques, and all that. And once I got aligned, it took us some time, but once I got aligned, I was like, okay, now I'm feeling really good. Thank you. And I said, has anybody proven how chakras could be applied in finances? And that was the starting point of like understanding this. And I said, if I can prove it in physical realm, and then I can actually make it work, in so many different ways. So I took the 7 chakras and I started doing combinations, because I needed to come up with a rule, right? It needed to be a rule or rules that we can apply in practical life. So I went ahead and I started digging into financial instruments I already knew, and then I started digging into chakras in more detail. And I found that actually, chakras can be applied in finances, and chakras does affect us financially. And so the question is how. So I started creating formulas. So now I have formulas that I have created, literal formulas, such as financial mathematical formulas, and I've created other things around that with chakras.
So when we so the root chakra, do you think that is kind of what drove you as you got here, that you were going to have to outwork everyone in order to be able to be financially solvent?
Yeah. So like, look, at the end of the day, we all have to, what I have found through my studies is we all have our superpower, right? We have our epicenter that we need to apply. And mine happens to be different than other people. So like everybody has, all of us have our own epicenter or centers, right? So depending on what we are operating from. So your root chakra plays a huge role when it comes to staying grounded and being grounded and knowing where you are going all the time. Otherwise, if that's really that is like the epicenter for some of the major issues that human beings face, right? Whether it's fear, anxiety, uncertainty. Uncertainty is a big one there. So if to make certainties come to life, you have to have grounding. Otherwise you'll have a hard time. You'll have a hard time not only proving to yourself but proving to others that you can do it.
Yeah. So how does that prevent you from reaching your potential, or help you reach your potential?
So what I find is that when you are looking at chakras, right, they are like so chakra word, those of you who don't know what chakra is, chakra itself is the word itself means wheel. Okay, so if you take a look at like a car engine, right, it's like a spokes of an engine, right? So or if you take a look at combination of a locker, right? So combination of a lock. So when one is blocked, the second one is not open, right? So it's combinations that needs to open between all 7 channels in order for you to, reach the nirvanic state in anything that you may be doing or anything that you're trying to accomplish. So when one is blocked, the second one is not open. And as far as reaching your potential, I mean, it's very simple. Like, let's say that you can jump 10 foot high, but right now you are afraid to jump, period, right? And hence you're hindering your potential. But the question is how high can you jump financially?
Right. So how does someone wind up figuring out how high they can jump financially?
So I would say that first and foremost, look, just know that world has been telling you that your potential is infinite, right? And that's true to some degree, right? The world is potentially infinite. It is infinite because it's universal. But I want, like, you might think that your potential is only $100,000 a year or $250,000 a year, or but I'm just here to tell you that your potential is much higher than that. It goes into so if you take a look at like the richest guy in the world, okay, just to give you a simplest example you can take. So if you take a look at the current moment in time, if you take a look at the richest guy in the world or richest girl in the world or company in the world, right, that gives you an understanding of the what a potential could look like, right? In this case, it could be a mentor. You might like a particular mentor, right? That begins to stretch your mind. But that's one way to figure out what is possible in reality, right? Look at some mentors that you might like, and then see how far you can really go.
I guess that's a good point. Yeah, because we know our potential, at least because we can prove. Like right now, it's probably Jeff Bezos because Elon Musk he lost a bunch of money overnight. That's why you shouldn't invest in Bitcoin, I guess. You never know where it's going to go. But now it's probably Jeff Bezos. So that's what we know our potential is, because he's already achieved it.
Right.
So how would someone, like, if I was Jeff Bezos, am I done? How do I know what my potential is if I'm Jeff Bezos?
Right. So I think that the goal is that it's not that you're done, right? I don't think that we will always ever be done. But if you were to take a look at what is our current potential, if you were to take a look at, okay, what's the maximum we can achieve right now, right? As of right now, how far we can see, right? And that would be, for the time being, it would be Jeff Bezos, I would say, right? Or if you are following like a financial professionals, maybe Warren Buffett, right? Just, but it gives you a benchmark to start with, right? It gives you a pretty good understanding. Okay, I can actually, be worth this much money, right? It would be kind of cool to be worth this much money, but it gives you a base.
So Ash, let me ask you this.
Yeah, TK.
Some of the folks that I've coached, when they've started businesses and they've done very well, they've gone from other successful businesses. Hey, I'm going to strike out on my own, and I'm going to create wealth for me and the folks that invest in me, and more importantly, the people that work with me. And one of the companies in the first 5 years, they went from 0 to 250 million, which in that industry he's really doing well. Mm-hmm. And we were chatting one day, and I had said something about fear, and I would think it's like if you're fearful or angry, you can't be great. And I don't care, because you're blocking chakras, right? You have a finite amount of energy in your body, And every day that battery's charged up and you deliver that energy to the things that are important to you, or you deliver that energy to the things that are going to preclude you from your greatness, right? And so I said, you know, what are you afraid of? And he said consequences. What he really meant was failure. And so we walked around that and we got to that for a little while. And I said, so what's your vision? What's your goal? He goes, I want to be $1 billion company. I surmised that he picked $1 billion, aside from it's a nice round number and it's a lot of commas, is that it's more than the company he left. Right. And so he was sitting at 250 thinking he was scared to think of $1 billion. And so what I did is I backed him up. I said, well, what did you do last year? He said, well, we grew by 50 million. I said, well, why don't we grow by 60 this year? I said, you don't have to tell the world that your goal is $1 billion, because your goal might not be $1 billion. When you get near $1 billion, it might be 5 billion, right? You know what I mean? Because you can't see that far. But what would you say to that type of strategy of aligning yourself, having an ultimate goal, you know, having that one that's the long-term strategic goal, but breaking it down into achievable tactical goals that continue to feed you energy because you create your own success in a smaller scale?
Yeah. So number one thing is that what is his what is his, so if you were to able to identify his primary chakras, right, like you are able to tell like exactly who he is. So in many ways, like with chakras, right? So another thing about chakras is that chakras are these energy centers or hubs in your body, right? So there are 7 of them. Those of you who don't know, they go from the base of your spine to up. And these chakras are epicenters for all of your emotions, different emotions, right? So if you were able to figure out 2 things, right? 1, his primary chakra, and 2, his primary energy flow. So there is a flow in which he is operating from when he is telling you this particular information. So the question is, what is that information? And essentially, you as a coach, what you're looking to do is break that, right? The question is, how are you breaking that?
Right.
So there's 2 tactics behind that, right? One tactic is, of course, ask him like where you want to go and give him a small steps. But the second way, that is what I have found it to be more efficient way, is that if you are able to identify their primary chakras and their primary flow, you're able to break them faster and get them to the next level, thought process in a much faster manner.
Nice.
So one thing for sure is that you have, like a step-by-step mechanism is great, but it's like this. If you were to go and, like sometimes some people just need a step-by-step instructions. And there are some people who just want to pay for something and get it done.
Right.
Right. So the question is, where is he in the spectrum?
I'm a big believer you can't buy your way to happiness.
I agree with that.
Thing you've got to, there's certain things you have to do for yourself.
100%.
And there's a motivation doesn't last, but discipline does. And I think part of I'm going to assume that part of lining up my chakras is assuming there's a discipline to dealing with your spiritual health as much as your financial health and everything else, right? And I think a lot of people lack that discipline because they either want to have a Bentley tomorrow or and they don't want to do it, or in your physical and emotional world, you don't want to do the things, whether it's eat right, work out, meditate, and create a disciplined lifestyle that leads you to that success.
Yeah. So like, what I was trying to say was that basically is that everybody goes to, no matter what you are trying to do, you're going through 4 stages. And every single time you start from the base and you go up, and you're always going from unlock, unblock, attract, and build. So you are trying to build, which is $1 billion company.
Right.
But every time he thinks about a new idea, a new strategy, new thought process, every time that's being implemented, it goes back to like his default, which is the fear, right? So he's afraid. And so every time he's telling you, you were starting from the baby steps, which is unlock, right? So like you are really trying to unlock that and go, okay, but if you think this way, it'll be better. What's he thinking this way, right? And you might give him some exercises or rituals or whatever that you may perform, but at the end of the day, you're taking him through that process, and he has to go through that process, and that is his journey and only his journey.
Right.
Not
I can
not
walk you to the gate, but you got to walk through it and go out and leave the confined area and get out there and own you.
Yeah, exactly. And I have a client that I was talking to this weekend, and this person was like very getting to a point where they were not following up and being a wishy-washy, and I had to have a really straight conversation with them, and I said, I can guide you, but I cannot help you. You got to help yourself.
Right.
I can, like they went out and they were making all these decisions on their own, and then they wonder why they are in the situation. And I said, you already did it. Like we didn't talk about it. I mean, like we had no discussion. So I'm like, I'm at a loss here because I'm trying to help you, but I can't. And I have a philosophy of of a horse, right? Like, if you take a horse to the water,
right,
and you can't make them drink it. But my philosophy is, if I can help the horse drink the water, sometimes I think about drowning it, or other times I
Oh, yeah, you have no idea how close it is. A headlock right around there. Get the
water. So Ash, I want to make sure I got this right here. So you had said that there's two ways we can go about helping people, right? So in this case, TK scenario, we can essentially tell them to be more prescriptive, but in this case, instead of growing from 50 to 60, if we were helping them unblock and go through that process of energy, they would figure out, is 60 the next step, or is it 100, or maybe it's just 55. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. So if TK knew his primary chakras, his primary chakra and his primary energy flow, then he would have been able to flow better with him, right? And not necessarily have to go from, maybe he didn't want to go from 50 to 60, right? Maybe he wanted to, or he was capable of, maybe the better word is capable of, right? Because it's about his potential. So his potential is higher, and you would have been able to push him at a different speed, if you will, right? To say the least. So you could take somebody from unlocking to, straight to attracting or building, right? Like you don't have to go through the stages, because you already know their primary energy flow and their primary chakra. So what happens is that we are stuck as a human beings in our flow. So there are, if you look at 1 through 7 in yogic science, they have talked about, they go from the spinal cord and up, right? But what I found in my research is that that's not how we flow as a human beings. We have a primary chakra that we come from, number one. And then we have a primary energy flow, meaning our 1 through 7 is different than 1 through 7 that's taught in the Vedic, texts or Upanishads, right? That what they have talked about in terms of chakras. So our chakra system, yes, it is 1 through 7 as far as like philosophy on how they have been taught, but as a rule, we are all different as human beings. That's what makes us so unique.
So you talking the order? So if you just
the order is
7, mine might be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2. Is that
exactly. So it might be different order. So you might start from like your epicenter, right? Your epicenter is different.
Yeah.
So for instance, I'll give you from a very basic understanding, right? Somebody who is like Dan, he's very much logical person, right? Like comes from a educational background. He wants to know everything. He wants to know the details. He wants to get into, like, he wants to know my secret formula, which he will not know today until he buys my book. But
which I will be. I will buy the book.
Note to self, folks. Ash is telling you how to become wealthy. Don't give away stuff for free that people will pay for.
Exactly.
But the thing is, what I found is that your 1 through 7 is going to be different. So his number 1 is going to be his Anja chakra, his third eye chakra, right? Where he's all about logic, intellect, intelligence. Like that's where he's operating from, number 1, right? So if I come in with him and let's say I wanted to communicate with him about something, doesn't matter what it is, right? If I don't communicate that intellectually, he's not going to take me on. End of story. That's the beginning and end of his game, right? Then he has a flow that he's going through. So there are other things he is doing within his body to make sure that this is real or not for him. So hence making the decision to bring me on the show. Similar process that he took on, right? Of course, like now I know why he's doing the interviews, but overall, like, if you look at like everything I heard so far, is he wants to have more knowledge. He's hungry for knowledge, right? At the end of the day, if he's not intellectually stimulating, if I just said I will motivate your audience, may not be the best thing for this show. My point here.
That's I never thought of it that way. I mean, other than, yes, you're absolutely right. If you were to come at me or most of the people I know and not from an intellectual standpoint, then it's very likely we're going to now question everything, and the questions would likely be a little bit different in terms of now we want to disprove what someone might be saying because you came at us in a way that did not appear to be intellectually honest.
Right?
Yeah. Which is, I continue to go through this quite a bit, and I did a show this past Wednesday with Jason on the organ harvesting in China, and I kind of went back to this aspect of the shadow work by with Carl Jung, and going, hey, could I have been a guard at Auschwitz if I had grown up in Germany and not had a faith background that I had? And I go, well, I might have done that. But then I look at everything that's going on in China, and I go, well, they're all doing that. So, it's if you don't look at what those, how you could also turn evil, could be.
I look at the guard, like that whole from a psychological point, like when you talk about it psychologically, the guard at Auschwitz conundrum, there's a reason they all got tried as well, right? Because sometimes just showing up and saying, hey, I was just doing my job isn't good enough. But what allows, what level, right? There's a couple ways later. What level of fanaticism did you have to buy into where that seemed to be okay? Right. And from whether it's from a chakra standpoint, what's internally, however you articulate it, what do you have to give up on in your being in order to stand by and watch those types of things happen, or commit to, in the case of the organ harvesting, think it's okay to basically use another human as a chop shop.
Yeah. That's really sad, but
But I mean, that's kind of, I had to be honest with myself and go, wow, I could foresee myself possibly. There's a world where the possibilities of me doing evil things exists. Hopefully I never do that, but
yeah. If you do decide to go there, I'll stay virtual with you.
Yeah. very, very nice. Very.
Note to self: Ash isn't buying into physical contact when you're a lunatic.
Yeah.
So Ash, you talked about.
He's very logical. He's sane. We know.
Right. You talked about 4 things, and it was unlock, unblock. What were the other 2?
Attract and build.
Attract and build. I think those are life lessons, right? I mean, in anything, right? Because I think we step in our own way every day of the week.
Yeah, exactly.
I would see people like, oh, there's only 2 things that you're afraid of. You're either afraid of failure or you're afraid of success. Yeah. If you're afraid of failure, it's probably going to be really easy to help you out because we can remove some of those things and put in front of you a path. But if you're afraid of success, then that's harder because you're going to consistently drop things in front of you that's going to trip you up because you want to manifest. You want to manifest the outcome you imagine.
Yeah, is that the right order? Unblock, unlock, or is it
no? Unlock, unblock, attract, and build.
Got it. All right.
So what I find is that so that's why the primary chakra and your primary energy flow is very important, because once you understand that, you are able to tackle, especially, you know, TK, like in your case, if you're doing coaching, you know, you're able to tackle things at a much faster speed, because now you understand this person. Like, so imagine from the moment, like one of the things I talk about in Financial Chakras program is that understanding your chakras, right? Understanding other people's chakras, right? So imagine from the moment you meet somebody and you shake their hand or you meet them virtually, you know exactly what their primary chakras are, you know, or their energy flow is, right? You are able to communicate your language in a so much more efficient manner, i.e., like when I talk about financial chakras to a wellness world, right? My languaging is different. My sales languaging is different when I'm positioning it there, right? Versus if I'm positioning it in a practical show, you know, i.e., like, you know, in this show, like what we are talking about today is different than when people in the wellness world interview me, and it just
Right.
is. It's not good or bad. It just is, right? So when I go on a show and when I'm doing an interview, I'm able to communicate better, knowing what the audience is really looking for. Like, you know, I could go into really heavy duty stuff, but I don't, you know, your audience may or may not understand that, right? Just depending on who they are.
So one of the things that that, you know, when you talk organizationally with leaders is, you know, how do we get organizations as a whole to buy in? And I tend to think that that there's an energy to an organization, right? That people are different parts, and, you know, is the quality great energy going to rise to the top, or is the, you know, the miscreant energy that's in any given group of people going to rise to the top? How I'm fascinated to continue learning about how, you know, you apply this to individual, you know, contact, and, hey, I'm talking to you, and we're gonna align you both financially and emotionally and with your chakras to get you going. How can you apply that to an organization and say, I want to find the, you know, metaphorically, the financial chakras of the organization, and then how do we start lifting the whole group up by using that same thought process?
Yeah. So one of the things that what I found with financial chakra is, so as I was expanding this, initially it was selfish, right? Because I wanted to just come back from this loss I had, right? So I'm like, okay, I got to make my money back. You know, like
that's most great ideas, right? I think most great ideas, most greatness happens because of adversity.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what I mean. I was down to a point where I wasn't talking to anybody, like anybody. You know, I didn't tell my wife, didn't tell my daughter, didn't tell my dad, mom, nobody. I was just quiet. And my wife is like, I was wondering why you were quiet. You know, after she found out, it took me some time to tell her, but I told her after I came back up, just so you know. But I waited, you know. You know,
right?
But
You came with her as a solution was being presented, not with the problem.
Dan, what's the start of your show? Guess who's back?
Yeah.
Oh boy, you know. So the thing is, so what I was saying. Where was I in the thought process? I was talking about so as I was discovering this. So one of the things I found out is that as I was discovering this whole thing about how chakras exist in finances, then I started thinking a little differently. I said, okay, can this be applied in your sales strategies, in your marketing, or can this be applied in a physical world? So what I found is that I can prove how chakras exist in a cup of coffee, right? So as I'm just kind of taking it a simple example, right? So if I can prove that how chakras exist in this conversation, right, or in this computer, that or meeting this what are we using, StreamYard, you know, how we are using StreamYard, right? In order for it to work, you know, what is taking place right now is so crucial now, because if I can do that, then I can actually utilize that for, it becomes a formula now that I can use for anything. So one of the things I found is that with organizations it's absolutely can be utilized, you know, in terms of the organizations are concerned. So like when you're talking about the infrastructure, and you're able to solve problems faster. So the goal of this is, how fast can you solve the problem? Because if every second is worth blank amount of money, you know, how fast can you solve a problem? And that's what they're paying us for, right? So and so that's what the formulas are allowing us to do, with financial chakras formulas, is that you are able to go in and say, okay, here's where the organization is, here's where the leadership is, here's are the tasks that needs to get done, and here are the issues that they are facing, right? And where is the block, right? And if you can figure that out and take out the bottlenecks, I mean, you can solve problems fast.
Right. So you would have to go in, when you go into this organization, you're going to have to talk to the marketing team a little bit different than you're going to talk to the sales team versus the people in IT. But ultimately, I mean, those are all also, I would say, maybe I'm getting it wrong, chakras of the organization, right? We've got to turn marketing this way in order to get everyone flowing, because the organization needs to succeed. And inside an organization are multiple different types of, or at least the order of their chakras could be different.
Yeah, so each person is different, because even in marketing alone, let's say you have marketers, or three different types of marketers, right? So just if you take a look at marketers, they each one of them have a different flow. Each one of the salespeople have a different flow. So we will really have to go inside and dig in each person, because they all have different patterns. So because of that, each individual chakra is different, and they come from a primary chakra and primary energy flow. So the question is, what are those? And then we are looking at it as an organization that has a chakras inside of them that are completely different than what they are saying. Then you have the leadership, right? So the complexity of it is, you have the leadership and their chakras. You have the marketing and sales organizations and operations, and their chakras are individually. I'm not talking just as a organization, but as a individuals that belong in that space, right? And then you have the chakras of the organizations itself, right? So like and then you have the minuscule tasks that you're trying to accomplish at each level. So that's what makes it so complicated system.
Wow. It's definitely complicated, that's for sure. Or I would say complex is probably better, because
Yeah.
we can break them down into this thing. So what type of if you had to classify a particular group in an organization that you find the most difficult to reach, what kind of group is the most difficult for you?
For me?
Yeah, for you.
I have not heard that.
Dan stumped the band today.
Yeah, I have not. I mean, like, realistically, okay, so big organizations, I'm going to be frank and open here, right? Because until now, I have been targeting, small, medium-sized, entrepreneurships and businesses, right? Now I'm getting more into bigger organizations as we speak. So, but it's a process that I have built, and I wasn't rushing the process, because the book is not quite there yet. It's almost there, but it's not there yet, right? And my programs are there, so I can teach on all these things. It's just not in a book format,
Right.
So there has been a little bit of a stomper, but I have not had that issue, honestly. Like, I really haven't had that issue. I mean, do you see, TK, from what you're hearing, that I would have a trouble getting into that? I don't think so.
I don't think I've ever quantified it as chakras, but if you go into and you're dealing with, let's say, the product staff for engineering, those, how they focus is different than marketing, right? What's important, you're taking people in marketing that sometimes they're more artistic. They're how their social interactions, how they view the world and how you can accomplish greatness is different from the head of development, for example. And so if you start, everybody's equal, they're just not the same. And so you do it when you say, hey, I've got to find out which chakras, or how you flow, right? And I think in that way, and we do have to make some assumptions as people when you go into an organization that, by and large, salespeople, what are they motivated by, right? What's your motivations in thing? And so how do people act, and who's attracted to those careers?
Right. So I think, that's where I find the issue is that, because it's not about how you are, what you are motivated by. The real question is, who are you?
Right. But I mean, can you apply that organizationally? Like, who is the marketing department in this company? And is it a function of the leader of the marketing department, or is the organization real strong and the leader strong enough to go, hey, I'm just going to ride and hold on to the reins and let these great people do great things? Or am I going to try to tamp that down so that my energy, which sometimes isn't good, right? Not all energy is good. So that my energy comes to the top and I get to be in charge. Right. I think those are the challenges.
Yeah. And so what I find is that when you're talking to organizations, when you talk about like, I want to be the leader, or there's a fight going on in terms of trying who's going to get the seat, that usually comes from from an egotistical perspective in many ways. And, ego lies in a particular chakra. So like the question is that, how strong is that, and when you are looking at the person and you're trying to overcome this situation, the question is how, right? Because there is ritual ways to get out, like at least damp it down. So there are actually right now proven so many ancient ritualistic ways to get it down. The question is, what is that? And what we have done with financial chakras is as a researchers, we have researched like all the techniques you can possibly find in the world. And that includes everything like meditation, yoga, crystals, like anything you can imagine. And we have broken it down to like each emotions that are causing this issue, whether it's a very prominent or not present at all, depending on what they're facing and what they're seeing.
Yeah.
So to overcome each one, there's a different combinations or different things, that techniques that can be applied.
There was a fascinating study done by Stanford, and they looked across hundreds and literally almost 1,000 businesses, big, medium to large companies that have boards of directors that have a direct influence on hiring the CEO. And what they found is that there's repeatedly narcissists get CEO jobs, right? And a lot of us, hey, they come in, they've solved every problem, they're going to solve yours, they're going to leave, they're going to solve it, but then when that narcissist behavior infects, and I treat it like an infection, infects a company, they find that within 18 to 24 months, people start voting with their feet and leave. I'd be fascinated to say, even when you talk about this, it's like how you could apply this to HR, because if you can assess that somebody's primary chakra is rooted in ego is the enemy, and your ego's deaf, dumb, and blind. It never hears the truth. And I would be fascinated to see, what would be the formula for that from an HR perspective? Because I think right now we do hiring very badly, whether any of the job sites, if you're really good at going in and picking out the keywords and manipulating your cover letter, you can move to the next step. That's not a way to hire somebody, right? I mean, but that's primarily what we do, because we're at the altar of efficiency sometime. And it seems to be nowhere worse than with probably one of the most important positions, the leader. And I'd be fascinated to see how that would work, is to get a formula for HR to make those things bubble to the top. So you could say, organizationally, who are we, and how do we get people that'll A, fit in, but B, take their energy and add to what we're doing.
Yeah. And I'll tell you for sure that from a perspective, that's why I teach about like how to not only understand your energies, but how to understand other people's energies. So from a simplistic perspective, from the minute you meet somebody, you should have a clear understanding who this person is. And if you get that, you can catch the rest of it, because, every job demands, or every task demands a certain, person. So what's the craziest part of what I have found about this, TK and Dan, is that everything that you own was made for you. If you just stop and take a pause from the color, everything, whoever made it just for you. If you just take a pause and really think about that, right? Think about what that particular product or service went through to get it there, right? It went through a lot, I'm sure, but it's the same thing with the organizations, TK, is that when they're talking about hiring a staff, they're hiring a staff, and that job, fits somebody. The job has chakras that has a perfect combination that is looking for.
Hey, Ash, by the way, I am so stealing that line.
Okay.
I'm just telling you right now, I'm so stealing that line. You don't even know. Like tomorrow, that's going to be up on social media as a daily thought.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
Just tag Ash in it.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
So Ash, I'm going to go back because that question I asked you was there was a reason for it in terms of like, what do you find? Which groups of people do you find the most difficult? Because I have two that I have a very difficult time, and maybe it's in me, which I'm perfectly fine with that as well. People that are content with where they are today. They don't necessarily at least show or provide I would say their actions are not showing that they want to be better tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I have a difficult time with those kind of people, as well as those people that it's their way or the highway type of people. Like, hey, I'm the guy or I'm the gal, and this is the way it's going to be. So those that are always, those are the two groups of people I have most difficult with.
Okay, so the first group was which one?
People that they're just content with where they are right now. No ambition. They're fine. They don't want to be better tomorrow. They don't want to learn anything new. They don't want change. They don't want change at all.
We fear change.
Yeah.
That's when I say there's 2 times when I do different things with the horse. but needless to say, so I think that if somebody doesn't have motivation, right? Like if somebody doesn't have ambition, I mean, there's not much anybody can do with that, right? I mean, like even there's not much anybody can do with that because it's like pushing a string. You know.
But, see, I like that. It's like pushing a string. I'm all in. Keep talking. Yeah. I'm
talking, right, TK? Yeah.
I from a chakra perspective, what do you view the difference to be between ambition and motivation?
Ambition and motivation, they come from different chakras. So they have a, let's just say, primary home and primary flow. And they are both different. The home is different for both of them.
Okay.
And I'll keep that for my seminar in case you want to look into steal it again.
No, I'm not. I was more interested. Hey, who else has ever sat and listened to you and said, hey, I'm so stealing that line?
Hey, by the way, I look at it as a compliment, but thank you for that.
No, it's totally a compliment.
Thank you. No, I think that, so they both are different because ambition, and the second one was, again, I drew a blank.
Motivation.
And motivation, yeah. So motivation is from within. To in many ways, motivation is not only it's kind of like saying self-love, right? So you really are understanding when you are doing motivation and you're motivating others. To motivate others, you have to love yourself.
Right.
First.
I agree with that. Totally agree with that.
You know, if you don't love yourself, you can't motivate others. Period. You can't be empty cup or half full. You know, and help others, right? So you gotta be full. So I'm putting it in a simplistic language, right?
I agree. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, and ambition comes from cup half full, because in ambition, you're trying to get the cup full.
Yeah.
So one cup is already full, and the other one is trying to get full. So now how are they generating rest of the water? It's a questionable item because. Is it raining? Is it are they doing evaporation technique, right? We fake it till you make it, right? Yeah. What is it? So they come from a different chakra, and their flow is completely different, totally different.
Right.
And so one is more empty, one is more full. And the question is, and then from that, whatever their primary chakra is, depending on their flow, that will determine their ultimate destiny.
Very cool.
Their ultimate destiny. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was like, hit some deep thoughts over Sunday coffee this morning.
I know, I'm digging it. I like it. Not the normal nonsense that we run on about.
Yeah. Well, wow. So so going to the second part, how about the people that just they at least are they're the it's my way or the highway type of people. So they just believe that they're always right, and they don't want to hear what anyone else has to say. How do you what kind of things can you do to try to get them to be more open to being wrong? Because I find that they just double down on their mistakes, and they'll just keep doing it, and eventually, they're out of a job, and maybe many other people are out of a job as well. How do you reach those kind of people?
Yeah. So the people who are in the ambition state of, they're more of ambitious people, right? Like they really are coming from a perspective of ego, right? So ego and greed are the two primary factors there, right? So the questioning is that what is that again? Like when we are taking a look at their primary chakras, they're different. So when it comes to ego, it comes from a different space than greed. So greed is much more deeper than ego. So so when you're taking a look at this type of individual, what we can, I mean, the best thing we can do is first understand where is their grounding, what grounds them. So if you don't know their primary chakras or chakra, then you won't be able to ground them. So what makes it difficult for these people is get them, like, obviously they don't realize it until they are at the end of the line, right? Like they realize it when they're like, oh my God, like I was so wrong, right? And even then sometimes they don't realize that they're wrong.
Yeah, they'll have some type of excuse. Well, this person just didn't get it. Like they didn't, it's this person's fault. It's that person. It's never their own fault.
Exactly. It's a blame game.
Yeah.
They always play the blame game. And that's why I say, like, if they're not grounded or centered. So what happens within chakras is that, when you do meditation, we talk about like illuminate, particular energy, right? That's coming in your body. And then imagine is being illuminating. So the reason being is that when you're taking a look at your primary chakra or a flow that you're going in, when you are, when you take a look at it, it's either hyperactive or underactive, right? So once you understand the primary energy or primary chakra that somebody has, whatever that is, and you begin to illuminate that in a proper manner or balance it in the right way, right? That's where the grounding begins. So with this person who is extremely egotistical, I would say they are very difficult to deal with, to a good degree, right? Because they're hard to lead, but if you can get them grounded, that's probably the most beautiful thing you will see. They're just most difficult to get them there because they're already full. See, the good news is they're already full. In many ways, they understand who they are. That's why they are so confident.
Interesting.
The question is, how do we twist that and get them to ground themselves?
Well, we make sure that Wharton is no longer the #1 business school. That's the first step.
Yeah,
I find that people that went to Michigan Ross, they're the better type of people anyway.
Okay, I would have to agree on that because I don't know either one. So.
It's at Nostradamus people for those people who feel like commenting. It's
yeah. Yeah. No, but
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those are the people sometimes you just want to go to option B with the horse.
Yeah.
But, it's not the right way to go. I think it's better to, we try to help everybody, right? So if you're really full and you really want to help, then there's always a way. The question is, what's the way? And holistically speaking, there are techniques that they can use to ground themselves. But we have to get them grounded. They have to be ready to be receive that, right? Because sometimes, so like you were asking me, what's my most difficult market to reach? And I think that if I was to take financial chakras to a place where they don't know anything about chakras, I think that would be a difficult conversation.
Yeah, because you first got to teach them what all the chakras are, and you got to teach them the energy flows and things of that nature, and then which is going to take twice as long.
Basically, yeah. Well, so I mean, so I agree with that. It will take twice as long. But what's been happening, honestly, Dan and TK, is that the conversation that I'm having with people is getting very interesting really fast. Because like and it's even helping me understand where the markets are in many ways, where it's untapped markets. Nobody has tapped this. No, like whatever you're thinking from a simplistic perspective, it's simple, it's effective, but it's going to take a bit to understand, because it's not just conscious level. Because if you take a look at Western science, it's all conscious level thinking, but this is all subconscious level thought processes, right? So we have three types of bodies, right, inside of us. So we're talking about a physical body, a subtle body, and then we have conscious body. So when you're taking and then inside of that, we also have subconscious, right? So the question is, where are all these emotions subconsciously? So in many ways, it goes into the realms of at subtle bodies, in a way that I mean, that's what fascinated me, honestly. That's what made me do all the digging. Started digging and say, okay, if I meet this person, I used to when I came here, I was working at a gas station, and I was working at a gas station. So one of my job was to, as a cashier, to identify what type of car, filling up the gas. So just in case they run away, then we can tell, So it has always fascinated me to learn about people. I always get fascinated when I meet somebody. I wonder how is this person, and I always try to tell, just like and what I found is that whatever you have in your life is based on your primary chakra or the primary energy flow, period.
Do you think that because the U.S. is primarily a Judeo-Christian, nation as far as like faith goes, for the most part, that you experience reticence in saying, hey, we're going to take a little bit of Eastern philosophy and throw it into making money? Or do you find that folks say, hey, I've been trying to generate wealth, I've been trying to be better than I was in a certain way, it hasn't been working so great, so I'm willing to try anything? Which one have you seen?
I think it's more the second option I'm seeing lately. But it wasn't always like that. When I came up with financial chakras in 2008, right, it wasn't like that at all. It was more of like, the first philosophy is, I'm going to take this and try to make money. Like I'll give you a perfect example, yoga. Like it has been so commercialized.
Yes.
Right? It is the most ridiculous thing I have ever seen, because if you read yoga books, yoga is not about doing poses. It has nothing to do with poses, as a matter of fact.
About breathing.
It's about breathing. It's about your internal being. It's about being. It's not about doing some like yoga poses. It has nothing to do with it.
People have turned namaste into a tagline for advertising, not really what it was meant to be.
Yeah, exactly. Now, look, the fact of the matter is, I understand why people do it to some degree, right? But you know what? Whenever you come from that particular chakra, when it comes from a greed, right? Now, what I find is that there is a guaranteed failure. What I found is that every time people went outside of the formulas that I have discovered, it's a guaranteed failure. When I looked at all 7 chakras and I started doing all over 5,000 combinations, what I found is every single combination I tried, it failed the test when I went out of the formulas. Every single time. And that was the thoughts, when as I put into the reality, right? Like, if I wanted to do something, whatever that was, didn't really matter what it was, but I just wanted to try it, right? Like I said, okay, I'm just going to be this way and try it this way, right? Or I'm going to be this way and I'm going to try it this way. And I tried out, and every single time, I went away from the core of the formulas, it failed.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm not as familiar with chakras, but I can understand the concept mainly because of my martial arts background. So I'm more on the traditional Chinese martial arts. So we have meridian lines, and the chi can't flow if you have certain things that are blocked, and they have it based on the organs and things. But similar concept.
Yeah, similar concept. You're right about that. So your chi, you're right. Whether we call it chakras or chi, right? I mean, to a good degree, I'm sure it all came from a similar rootage, right? If you will, because chakras were written up in Vedas in 1800 BC, roughly around that time. So when you take a look at blockages are concerned, they are real. They are real, and many times we just don't know what they are. Like, I'm sure, TK, your experience with many leaders, as you talk to them and you're trying to help them, guide them into different direction, they don't even know what the next levels are many times.
And TK's big enough to drown the horse.
And I think, well, I actually think that even during, I think that you can, at certain periods, for certain periods of time, get lost in yourself, right? Even if you're trying to be conscious and everything else, it's like, hey, stuff's not working out. Like you said, you were down, right? And you had to take a reset and come back up. Well, if you lose track of yourself, I think that reset takes longer.
Yeah, it does take longer, and I believe that as the world is coming together, right? I believe that as like yoga, meditation, everything is becoming very powerful, and I love people who are doing yoga and meditations and really yogis. I mean, I'm all for them. It's a movement, right? Financial Chakras is a movement for the wellness, or the yoga professions and the holistic minded entrepreneurs and the financial industry. And I'm really creating a movement for them, and to help them understand that they are worth a lot more than that. And as the world is beginning to realize, what we are seeing is everything is coming to a center. Everything is beginning to come to a center. And as you are seeing even a world shift in political climates, you are seeing that more and more, world is becoming heart-centric. More and more, there is a more liberal, thought processes going on, than hard lines. There are people are beginning to realize that, okay, there is a bigger mission, behind our humanity, and that's essentially what's been shifting for some time now.
Very interesting. So, Ash, first time guest on the show, and hopefully you'll come back and enlighten us some more. And I gave you a little bit of a preview of this on Friday. But you've got a book coming out, but what's next for Ash? Like, what kind of goal do you have that TK and I can hold you accountable for in the future?
Okay, well, what kind of goal do I have that you can hold me accountable for? Well, first and foremost, I want to come back, for sure. I enjoyed this conversation. I thought it was a really good conversation. And I want you to hold me accountable for making sure that I tell people that I love them. And I truly love your audience. And I want to tell them thank you for listening to me. Really appreciate that.
Thank you today. This was awesome.
Yeah, it's been a despite my funny jokes, but I like having fun. Just so you know, I have a full belief that if you do something, do it well, and do it with total. You're either all in or you're not. And
no fence riders,
brother. Amen.
No fence riders.
yeah, no fence riders. I am definitely that horse who is either running or just drowning someplace in bottom of the pool and just
You're trying to slip your way out of despair.
Yeah, so I believe in all reality. I want you to hold me accountable for that. I want to tell people that I love them, And I really want to, if I was live, I would love to give them hugs and, like high fives and all kinds of stuff. Would love that.
Well, while we have COVID stuff going on, you're going to have to do it virtually, or
Yeah, virtual high fives, right? Virtual
high fives, virtual hugs.
High fives. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Ash,
go ahead.
No, I'm really looking forward to your book coming out. Any parting words that you'd like to bestow upon us? I mean, we've already got a couple of things TK wants to steal.
Just one.
So.
Yeah. Well, so I think that first of all, I want to say to Dan and TK, both of you, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate you very much, and I really have enjoyed this conversation. I mean, I think that the number one, the questions were intellectually stimulating, which was really very, very, very good. I enjoyed that part because sometimes you get on things and it's just so blah, and this was actually interesting from both of you. So I really want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for honoring me for being here. And I want to tell your audience that, hey, if you ever get a chance to visit Financial Chakras, please go ahead and do that, financialchakras.com. And would love to have you, get my book. It's on pre-order right now. Just want to let you know. But it will be coming out soon. And the excerpt, I could read, but could I read them a paragraph about them?
Please.
Yeah, let me read a paragraph.
Ash buried the lead on us. Now we get to the good stuff.
Yeah. I want to read you. Hopefully it opens. Okay, just so you know, because it's okay. Here we go. It opened. All right. I said this in the beginning of my book. Okay. I said, dear reader, as I'm writing this book, I'm here to tell you that I love you and I can't wait to change your life. Allow me to keep you from making the same mistakes that cost me over $250,000 and take you on a path that had made substantial positive impact in my life. I bow down to you and ask for your blessings to open your heart to me and let me inspire you in a different way. You see, until now, chakras have been talked about as the principles of the body. Allow me this time to prove to you how chakras exist outside of your body and are the rules of the universe. Let me take you on a journey between spirituality and practicality and show you how chakras exist not just inside of your body, but they also exist in financial instruments, cup of coffee, your cell phone, or even in your product or your services. Let me show you how you can use chakras to help you measure your potential and emotions in dollars through my formula and a rule called financial chakras. Get ready to discover the power of the universe using the wisdom of ancient Vedic science in a way that has never been done before. I'm sure in your life, one time or other, you have had a desire to reach for the stars and make the best and precious gem called life. And my friend, I welcome you to Financial Chakras.
Very nice.
Thank you. That's awesome.
I dig that quite a bit. Well, Ash, if there's anything that I can do for you in the future, please don't hesitate to ask. I really enjoyed this. I can't wait for your book to come out. I will definitely be reading that. I'm halfway through your book on selling, which is interesting. I'll probably finish that in a couple of weeks because I kind of go a little bit here on this book, a little bit on this book, a little bit on this book, and then I always circle back. But sure. Ash, I really thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dan and TK. Really appreciate you guys.
Thank you. This was awesome.
Thank you, my friend.
All right, everyone. Take care and thanks for joining in. Have a great week.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right.